I need to tell you something that might change everything you're feeling right now. You didn't arrive here by accident. The weight you've been carrying, the burden that's been crushing your chest, making it hard to breathe, stealing your sleep, draining your energy. You weren't meant to carry it alone. And yet here you are, exhausted from pretending you're okay, tired of being strong, worn down from holding everything together while you're falling apart inside. The universe saw you. It saw your struggle. It saw your silence. It saw you scrolling through your phone at 3 in the morning, looking for something, anything, that might help you make sense of what you're going through. And it led you here, to this exact moment, to hear the message that was specifically prepared for you. Stay with me until the very end, because what I'm about to share will lift some of that weight off your shoulders. You've been carrying it alone for too long, and today, that changes. Before we begin this journey together, I need you to do something for me. Let's make this powerful. I want us to reach 100 comments on this video, and I need you to commit to staying until the final sentence. Can you do that? Your presence here matters more than you realize. Subscribe to this channel right now because the universe works through this platform's algorithm, and those who subscribe and watch completely are prioritized. You'll be first to receive the next message meant specifically for you. The universe only asks one thing in return for helping you. Leave one motivational comment below. Just one honest comment about what you're feeling, what resonated with you, or what you're working through. Those who watch until the end are remembered faster and receive their blessings sooner. We need to hit this goal together to keep bringing you more messages like this one, messages that the universe wants you to hear. Let me tell you about Jennifer. She was 41 years old when the weight became unbearable. From the outside, her life looked perfectly assembled. Successful career as a senior accountant, beautiful home in a quiet neighborhood, 2 children who were doing well in school, a husband who worked hard to provide for the family. But inside that picture-perfect frame, Jennifer was drowning. She woke up every morning with a tightness in her chest that wouldn't release. She moved through her days with a smile painted on her face, while anxiety screamed beneath her skin. She tucked her children into bed with gentle words, while her own thoughts were anything but gentle. She lay next to her husband each night, feeling utterly alone despite his physical presence beside her. The weight Jennifer carried had many sources. There was the financial pressure that kept her awake, calculating numbers, wondering if they'd make it through another month without dipping further into debt. There was the guilt of feeling like she wasn't enough as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter to aging parents who needed more than she had energy to give. There was the grief she'd never properly processed from losing her sister 2 years earlier, grief she'd pushed down because everyone needed her to be strong and functional. There was the shame of struggling when she knew others had it worse, the voice that told her she had no right to complain, no right to feel overwhelmed when she had so much to be grateful for. There was the exhaustion of performing competence at work while barely holding herself together, of answering "I'm fine" a dozen times a day when she was anything but fine. Jennifer didn't tell anyone about the weight. She didn't tell her husband because he had his own stress, and she didn't want to add to his burden. She didn't tell her friends because she was supposed to be the strong one, the one who had everything figured out, the one others came to for advice. She didn't tell her mother because her mother was dealing with her father's declining health and didn't need another worry. She didn't tell her therapist because she'd stopped going to therapy months ago, convincing herself she didn't have time and couldn't justify the expense. So Jennifer carried it alone. She carried the financial anxiety alone. She carried the parenting doubts alone. She carried the marriage concerns alone. She carried the grief alone. She carried the overwhelm alone. And with each passing day, the weight grew heavier. One Tuesday afternoon, Jennifer sat in her car in the parking lot of her office building and couldn't make herself go inside. Her hands gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. Her breath came in short, shallow gasps. Tears streamed down her face, ruining the makeup she'd carefully applied that morning to hide the dark circles under her eyes. She sat there for 20 minutes, then 30, then 45, completely paralyzed by the weight of everything she was carrying. She realized in that moment that she had 2 choices. She could keep carrying this weight alone until it completely destroyed her, Or she could finally ask for help. She could keep pretending she had the strength to manage everything by herself. Or she could admit that she was human, that she had limits, that she needed support. Jennifer pulled out her phone with shaking hands. She didn't know who to call first. Her finger hovered over her husband's name, over her best friend's name, over the employee assistance program number she'd saved months ago but never dialed. She felt ashamed that it had come to this. She felt weak for needing help. She felt like she was failing at the fundamental task of being an adult, which she believed meant handling everything independently without burdening others. But then something shifted in her awareness. A question appeared in her mind that she couldn't ignore. What if the weight was never meant to be carried alone? What if her isolation was adding more suffering than the actual problems themselves? What if asking for help wasn't weakness, but wisdom? What if the universe had been waiting for her to stop trying to be superhuman and start being human? She called her husband. Through tears and broken sentences, she told him everything she'd been carrying in silence. She told him about the panic attacks she'd been hiding in bathroom stalls at work. She told him about the financial fears that haunted her every waking moment. She told him about feeling like she was failing at everything, despite working herself to exhaustion. She told him she couldn't do it alone anymore, and something remarkable happened. He didn't judge her. He didn't tell her to be stronger or to pull herself together. He didn't minimize her pain or compare it to his own stress. He simply said, "I had no idea you were going through all of this. Why didn't you tell me sooner? We're supposed to be a team. Let me help you carry this." In that moment, Jennifer learned something that perhaps you need to learn right now. People cannot support you through struggles they don't know you're having. Your silence protects others from discomfort, but it destroys you in the process. Jennifer and her husband sat down that evening after the children were asleep and had the most honest conversation they'd had in years. They looked at their finances together and created a realistic plan instead of Jennifer trying to manage it alone while spiraling in anxiety. They talked about redistributing household responsibilities more equitably so the mental load wasn't entirely on her shoulders. They discussed her need to return to therapy and agreed it wasn't a luxury but a necessity, something they'd prioritize in their budget. They acknowledged the grief she'd been carrying and made space for it instead of expecting her to simply move on because time had passed. Most importantly, they committed to checking in with each other regularly, really checking in, not just the surface-level exchanges they'd fallen into. But Jennifer didn't stop there. She reached out to 2 close friends and admitted she'd been struggling. She was terrified they'd think less of her, that they'd see her differently, that the vulnerability would damage the friendship. Instead, both friends thanked her for trusting them enough to be honest. Both admitted they'd been struggling too, but hadn't said anything because Jennifer always seemed so put together. They realized they'd all been performing strength for each other while privately falling apart, and that performance had prevented real connection. They started meeting weekly, not for superficial catch-ups but for genuine support, creating a space where they could be honest about the hard parts of life without judgment or advice unless requested. Jennifer discovered that sharing her burden didn't just make it lighter for her, it gave others permission to share theirs too. She returned to therapy and worked with her therapist to understand why she'd believed she had to carry everything alone. They traced it back to childhood messages about self-reliance, about not being a burden, about earning love through usefulness and competence. They unpacked the belief that needing help meant weakness, that struggling meant failure, that asking for support meant imposing on others. Jennifer began to see that these beliefs weren't truth, they were programming. And programming could be rewritten. She learned that interdependence, not independence, was actually the natural human state, that we evolved as social creatures who survived through cooperation and mutual support. That isolation was the aberration, not connection. That carrying weight alone wasn't noble, it was unnecessary suffering. 3 months after that breaking point in the parking lot, Jennifer's life hadn't magically transformed into something without challenges. The financial pressure was still real, parenting was still demanding, work was still stressful, grief still surfaced in unexpected moments, but everything felt different because she wasn't carrying it alone anymore. The weight was distributed, the burden was shared. The isolation had been replaced with connection, and that made all the difference between drowning and staying afloat, between breaking and bending, between despair and hope. Now I want to ask you something, and I want you to be really honest with yourself as you consider this question. What weight are you carrying alone right now? What burden have you convinced yourself you need to manage independently? What struggle are you hiding behind a smile and an "I'm fine" while you're crumbling inside? What are you afraid will happen if you admit you're not okay, if you ask for help, if you let people see that you're human and struggling and in need of support? Take a moment and really feel into that weight you're carrying. Where do you feel it in your body? Is it a tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, tension in your shoulders, a heaviness in your limbs? That physical sensation is your body trying to tell you something important. This weight is too much. You weren't designed to carry it alone. Maybe you're carrying financial stress that keeps you awake at night. You're looking at bills you don't know how to pay. You're watching your savings disappear. You're one unexpected expense away from disaster. You're working multiple jobs and still falling behind. You're ashamed because you feel like you should be doing better, managing better, earning more, spending less. You scroll through social media and see everyone else seemingly thriving while you're barely surviving. You don't tell anyone because you're embarrassed, because talking about money feels taboo, because you're afraid of judgment, because you believe financial struggle means you're failing at life. But here's what the universe wants you to know. Your worth is not determined by your bank balance. Financial struggle does not mean you're inadequate or unintelligent or undeserving. Economic systems are designed in ways that make it genuinely difficult for many people to get ahead. And your individual struggle is often symptomatic of larger structural issues that have nothing to do with your value or capability. You need to talk to someone about this weight. Find a financial counselor, many of whom offer free or sliding scale services. Talk to a trusted friend or family member who might have insights or resources. Look into community assistance programs without shame. These resources exist because we're meant to help each other through difficult times. Create a realistic budget, not from a place of punishment, but from a place of clarity and control. Stop comparing your financial reality to other people's curated highlights. Most people are struggling more than they let on. Your honesty about your situation might actually help others feel less alone in theirs. The universe is asking you to shift from isolation and shame to connection and problem solving. Money issues are practical problems that require practical solutions, and you cannot find those solutions while you're drowning in secrecy and self-judgment. Maybe the weight you're carrying is emotional. You're dealing with depression that makes getting out of bed feel impossible. You're struggling with anxiety that turns every minor decision into an overwhelming ordeal. You're carrying trauma from your past that's affecting your present in ways you can't control. You're grieving a loss that everyone expects you to be over by now, but that still feels raw and consuming. You're battling addiction or disordered behaviors that you hide carefully from everyone around you. You're having thoughts that scare you, thoughts you can't tell anyone about because you're afraid of what they'd think or what might happen. You've convinced yourself you should be able to handle this on your own, that reaching out for mental health support means you're broken or weak or crazy. But the universe wants you to understand this clearly. Mental and emotional struggles are health issues, not character flaws. They require professional support, not just willpower. They deserve treatment, not judgment. You need to talk to a therapist, counselor, or mental health professional. If cost is a barrier, look for sliding scale clinics, online therapy options that are more affordable, support groups that are free, or community mental health centers. If you're having thoughts of self-harm or suicide, please reach out to a crisis line immediately. These services exist specifically for moments when the weight becomes too much to carry. Tell someone you trust what you're going through. You'd be amazed how many people have experienced similar struggles but never talk about them. Your vulnerability creates space for others to be vulnerable too. Taking medication, if it's recommended, isn't giving up or taking the easy way out. It's giving your brain the support it needs to function, the same way you'd take insulin if you were diabetic. The universe brought you to this planet to experience life fully, and you cannot do that while drowning in untreated mental health issues. Asking for help isn't weakness, it's self-respect. It's choosing life. It's honoring your inherent worthiness of support and healing. Maybe you're carrying relationship weight alone. Your marriage is struggling, but you haven't told anyone because you're ashamed, because you're afraid of judgment, because you don't want to hear, "I told you so," because admitting there are problems feels like admitting failure. Or maybe you're in a relationship that's actually harmful, but you can't seem to leave, and the weight of staying is crushing you while the fear of leaving paralyzes you. Or perhaps you're caring for an aging parent or a sick family member, and the physical and emotional demands are depleting you, but you feel guilty even thinking about your own needs when someone you love is suffering. Or maybe you're lonely, profoundly lonely, surrounded by people but feeling utterly disconnected, and you're ashamed of that loneliness as if it means something is wrong with you. The universe wants you to know that relationships are complex, and struggling within them doesn't mean you're failing. Marriages require work and sometimes professional support through couples therapy. If your relationship has become unhealthy or abusive, leaving isn't failure. It's self-preservation, and there are resources and people who can help you leave safely. If you're a caregiver, you must find respite care and support groups for caregivers, because you cannot pour from an empty cup, and burning yourself out helps no one. If you're lonely, you need to reach out even when every instinct tells you to withdraw. Join groups centered around your interests. Volunteer. Attend community events. See a therapist who can help you understand the patterns keeping you isolated. Connection is a fundamental human need, not a luxury or a weakness. The universe designed us for relationship, for community, for interdependence. Carrying relationship struggles alone intensifies them. Sharing them creates possibilities for solutions you cannot see from inside your isolation. Maybe you're carrying the weight of past trauma that you've never fully processed or shared. Maybe something happened to you that you've kept secret for years, something you carry with shame even though you weren't at fault. Maybe you survived abuse, assault, neglect, or betrayal that shaped you in ways you're only now beginning to recognize. Maybe you've been telling yourself it wasn't that bad, that you should be over it by now, that bringing it up now after all this time would only make things worse. But trauma doesn't disappear because we ignore it. It lives in our bodies, in our nervous systems, in our automatic reactions and unconscious patterns. It affects our relationships, our sense of safety, our ability to trust, our perception of ourselves and the world. And the weight of carrying unprocessed trauma alone is exhausting in ways that people who haven't experienced it cannot fully understand. The universe is telling you that your trauma deserves acknowledgement and healing. You deserve to work with a trauma-informed therapist who can help you process what happened and release it from your body and psyche. You deserve to understand that what happened to you wasn't your fault, that your survival responses were adaptive and intelligent, that there's nothing shameful about how trauma affected you. You deserve to know that healing is possible, that you don't have to carry this weight for the rest of your life, that support is available specifically for people who've been through what you've been through. Telling your story to someone trained to hear it can be the beginning of freedom you didn't know was possible. The universe never intended for you to carry trauma alone. It was meant to be witnessed, processed, and integrated with compassionate support. Here's what I need you to understand on a fundamental level. The belief that you must carry everything alone is a lie. It's a culturally reinforced lie that serves no one except systems that benefit from isolated, overwhelmed individuals who don't organize collectively or demand better. We're taught that independence is the goal, that needing others is weakness, that asking for help is imposing, that struggling means we're not trying hard enough. But these messages contradict everything we know about human psychology, neurobiology, and anthropology. We are social creatures. Our brains develop in relationship. Our nervous systems regulate through connection with other nervous systems. We survived as a species not because we were the strongest or fastest, but because we cooperated, shared resources, and took care of each other. Interdependence is our natural state. Isolation is trauma. The weight you're carrying feels heavier because you're carrying it alone. The same burden distributed across multiple people becomes manageable. This isn't weakness, it's physics. You wouldn't try to move a piano by yourself when 4 people could move it easily. You wouldn't build a house alone when a team could construct it efficiently. So why do you insist on carrying life's heaviest burdens without support? Why have you accepted the story that you should be able to handle everything independently? Who benefits from you being isolated and overwhelmed? Certainly not you. Certainly not the people who love you and want to support you but can't, because you won't let them in. The universe prepared this specific message for you because it knows you've been trying to be strong for too long. It knows you're exhausted from holding everything together. It knows you're reaching a breaking point, or maybe you've already reached it and are wondering how to put the pieces back together. It wants you to know that strength isn't carrying weight alone. It's having the courage to say, "This is too heavy, I need help." It wants you to know that asking for support doesn't make you a burden, it makes you human. It wants you to know that people want to be there for you, but they need to know what you're going through. They need you to trust them enough to be honest. They need you to give them the opportunity to show up for you the way you've shown up for others. Think about the people in your life who you love and care about. If they came to you struggling, overwhelmed, drowning in weight they'd been carrying alone, would you think less of them? Would you judge them as weak? Would you see them as a burden? Or would you feel honored that they trusted you enough to be vulnerable? Would you want to help? Would you wish they'd told you sooner? Would you feel closer to them because of their honesty? That's exactly how the people who love you will feel when you finally let them see your struggle. Your vulnerability doesn't push people away. It creates deeper connection. Your honesty doesn't make you a burden. It makes you real. Your humanity doesn't diminish you. It makes you relatable and lovable in ways that perfection never could. So, what do you do now? How do you actually put down some of this weight you've been carrying? First, you need to identify what you're carrying. Sit down with a journal or a notes app on your phone and list everything that feels heavy right now. Don't censor yourself. Don't minimize anything. Just write it all down. Financial stress, relationship problems, health concerns, work overwhelm, parenting struggles, grief, loneliness, past trauma, current fears, everything. Getting it out of your head and onto paper helps you see it more clearly. It helps you realize how much you've actually been managing alone. It validates that yes, this is a lot, and no, you're not weak for struggling under this weight. Second, for each item on your list, ask yourself, who could help me with this? Who could I talk to about this? What resources exist for this specific struggle? You might be surprised by how many options appear once you start actually looking for them instead of assuming you have to handle everything alone. Maybe your partner could help with household responsibilities if they knew how overwhelmed you were. Maybe a friend who's been through something similar could offer perspective and support. Maybe a professional counselor could help you process what you're feeling. Maybe a financial advisor could help you create a realistic plan. Maybe a support group could help you feel less alone. Maybe a family member could provide practical assistance if they knew you needed it. The help exists, but you have to be willing to reach for it. Third, start small. You don't have to tell everyone everything all at once. Choose one person you trust and share one thing you're struggling with. See what happens. Notice that the world doesn't end. Notice that they don't abandon you. Notice that honesty actually creates deeper connection than performance ever did. Build from there. As you practice vulnerability and receive support, it becomes easier to continue reaching out instead of defaulting to isolation. Fourth, challenge the thoughts that keep you isolated. When you think, I shouldn't burden others with this, ask yourself, is that true? Would I feel burdened if someone I cared about came to me with this? When you think, I should be able to handle this alone, ask yourself, says who? What evidence do I have that handling things alone is better than having support? When you think, people will think I'm weak, ask yourself, do I think people who ask for help are weak, or do I actually respect their courage? Fifth, if you're really struggling to reach out to people in your personal life, start with professional support. Therapists, counselors, coaches, hotlines, online support groups. These resources exist specifically to help people who are carrying heavy weight. There's no shame in using them. That's literally what they're for. Sometimes it's actually easier to open up to a trained professional than to people we know, and that's okay. Get the support wherever you can access it. What matters is that you stop carrying the weight alone, not where you start distributing it. The universe has been watching you struggle in isolation, and it's been waiting patiently for you to remember that you don't have to do this alone. It's been sending you signs, synchronicities, messages like this one, trying to break through the armor you've built around your struggle. It's been orchestrating moments where support could reach you if you were willing to receive it. But it cannot force you to ask for help. It cannot make you accept support. It can only keep offering opportunities and hoping you'll finally take them. This is one of those opportunities. This moment, right now, where you're hearing that your weight is too heavy to carry alone, and that help is available, and that asking for it is not weakness but wisdom. This is the universe reaching out to you directly. I don't know what specific weight you're carrying. I don't know the details of your struggle or the exact shape of your burden, but I know this. You matter. Your well-being matters. Your pain matters. Your need for support matters. You are not too much. You are not a burden. You are not weak for struggling. You are human, and humans are not meant to navigate life's heaviest challenges in isolation. We are meant to hold each other up. We are meant to share our burdens. We are meant to be vulnerable and honest and imperfect together. That's not weakness. That's the entire point of being alive in community with other people. Whatever you're going through right now, you don't have to go through it alone anymore. The universe prepared this message specifically for you, led you to this video at this exact moment, because it wants you to know that support is available, that connection is possible, that you deserve help, and that asking for it is the bravest thing you can do. Put down the weight. Reach out your hand. Let people help you carry what's too heavy to carry alone. Your life will transform in ways you cannot imagine from inside your current isolation. The relief you'll feel when you finally share your burden will show you how unnecessary that suffering was. The connections that deepen through your vulnerability will show you what's possible when we let people see us as we truly are. You've been strong for so long. You've been carrying so much. You've been managing and surviving and pushing through, and that took incredible strength you should absolutely acknowledge and honor. But now it's time for a different kind of strength. The strength to say, I need help. The strength to be honest about your struggle. The strength to trust that people care about you and want to support you. The strength to believe you're worthy of that support, even when you feel like you should be able to handle everything alone. That's the strength the universe is asking you to access now. Not the strength to carry more, but the strength to finally put some of it down. And if you want, tell me from which corner of the world you are watching this video. Your comment matters, and I want to read it and respond to you. For more exciting stories like this, click on the video that appears on your screen right now.